Hey guys, I'm going to do a video real quick. This one for the fight night coming up this weekend on Mexican Independence Day. We've got 3 fights to cover on this card, so let's get right into it. Now starting off, we've got Raul Rosas Jr. against Terrence Mitchell. Now Terrence Mitchell only just came to the UFC. He has been seen about 6 or 7 years ago in The Ultimate Fighter in one of those seasons, but this is his second fight inside of the UFC. He did lose his debut, but he does have more experience than Raul Rosas Jr. He's going to be longer, taller than him. He may have a striking advantage considering that Raul Rosas Jr. is so young. He doesn't seem to show anything very special in his stand-up, at least not as of yet, inside the UFC, considering he's only had 2 fights. Raul Rosas Jr. has gone 1-1 in those 2 fights, but he has looked very impressive in the grappling, and that's where I would give the grappling advantage to. Now, what I've noticed from the few fights that I've seen from Raul is he seems to focus solely on getting his opponent to the ground, because he knows that's where his bread and butter is going to be. He's got good jiu-jitsu along with some slick submissions to go along with it. He did win his first fight in the UFC by rear naked choke and then lost his second fight by decision. Now, I want to emphasize the fact that Raul Rosas is 19 years old. He's very young. He's the youngest person to ever fight inside of the UFC. He's the only guy to ever fight at the age of 18 in the UFC. And Terrence Mitchell is older, he's more experienced, he's got more fights under his belt. Now, here's the thing. The reason I wanted to bring up Raul's age is because we've seen a lot of fighters who go throughout their career going undefeated, and then they take that first loss, and that first loss rattles them. It changes everything. It shakes their confidence. So I'm very interested to see if Raul Rosas has been able to overcome that loss, or if he's going to come into this fight still shaken from the last fight. Because if he does come into this fight with the last fight on his mind, he probably could lose. And against Terrence Mitchell, who has more experience, who does have more fight time inside of the cage, he may be able to get it done on the feet, as long as he can keep Raul from taking him down. But I'm going to go with Raul Rosas Jr. because I feel that maybe the loss hasn't affected him all that much. It's not like he got finished in that fight against Christian Rodriguez, and he lost to a guy who is very talented. You know, I would hope that he's not beating himself up too much over it since his last fight. Obviously, it was not the best performance from him, but it could have been much worse. And along with that, Christian Rodriguez is a guy who is very good at what he does, and he just happened to be the better man on that night. So for this fight, I'm going to take Raul Rosas Jr. And I think Terrence Mitchell doesn't have as good takedown defense as you should probably have going up against a guy like Raul Rosas Jr. So for this fight, I'm going to take Rosas. On to the next fight, we've got Kevin Holland against Jack Della Maddalena. Now this one's going to be interesting. Jack Della Maddalena hasn't really had to fight any extremely good competition. This is probably the best guy that he's had to fight so far. Obviously, he's a prospect. He's 15-2 inside of his career, but the 2 losses that he took were at the very beginning of his career, so he's on a 15-fight win streak, and so far inside the UFC, he's 5-0. He's got real good boxing. You know, it seems that he likes to rush his opponents pretty often. He's perfectly fine with getting into a scrappy type of fight, but I feel like the style of Jack Della Maddalena isn't going to work very well with Kevin Holland, especially when you watch the interviews leading up to this fight that Kevin Holland has been a part of. He really seems to be carrying in a more serious mindset than he did with, say, Stephen Thompson. You know, Kevin Holland seems to have gone back to being very serious about winning rather than having fun in there. And Kevin Holland, I would say, is definitely the more well-rounded fighter. He's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't think that Jack Della Maddalena is going to be able to handle him on the ground if it goes there. And I think Kevin's going to look to take it there if given the opportunity. And then on the feet, Kevin can bring it to him. We've seen Kevin in the past be able to knock guys out on the feet, outclass guys on the feet. And obviously there's a lot of room to improve for Holland, but in comparison to Jack Della Maddalena, I just think he's the better fighter. And he's much more willing to fight in any facet of the game than Jack Della Maddalena is from what I've seen from Jack. So for this fight, I'm going to be taking Kevin Holland. And now on to the main event, we've got Grasso against Valentina Shevchenko in a rematch. The last time these two fought, a lot of people counted out Grasso, which is usually the pattern when it comes to any Shevchenko fight. I took Shevchenko in that fight simply because she is, without a doubt, the most well-rounded, solid female fighter I have ever seen. I mean, I looked at the rest of her division and I didn't see anyone that I could possibly fathom beating Shevchenko, which only goes to show how good Shevchenko is when it comes to getting inside that cage. But Grasso was able to capitalize on a spinning kick that Shevchenko threw in the last fight. She closed the distance, grabbed the neck, and got the choke. And Grasso was having success prior to the round where she got the choke. And that's the thing about Grasso that stands out the most is her boxing. On the feet, she is a threat to anyone. And I thought Grasso could give Shevchenko problems in the first fight. I just did not foresee her beating Shevchenko. And while she stands out in the boxing, she is well-rounded, but I don't think she's well-rounded enough to take Valentina when it comes to being on the ground. And they weren't grappling for very long. It was a split moment, perfect decision by Alexa Grasso to move in and grab the neck right when she did. And it just ended up being perfect for Mexico. But for this fight, I don't think that Shevchenko is going to mess with any of the spinning attacks or anything like that, because that's what led to her downfall in that fight. And I think Shevchenko is going to reclaim the belt this weekend. I just don't see a world where Shevchenko comes into this fight not having made the proper adjustments to beat Alexa Grasso on the feet or on the ground. In any facet of this fight, I think Shevchenko is going to have it down pat, perfect, as she normally does. And so for this fight, I'm going to take Valentina Shevchenko. And to recap for this weekend, I will be taking Raul Rosas Jr., Kevin Holland, and Valentina Shevchenko. And it looks like that's all I got for y'all. So hit like, subscribe, and all that.